they're not. The NFL, particularly their owners and other teams, are not going to like what Stan Kroenke did. When the Rams moved from St. Louis to LA, it was not a cheap move by any means. And if you've been paying any attention to what has been happening, is there was a lawsuit by St. Louis against Stan Kroenke saying that he left, uprooted the team, and did not give them the opportunity to say, well, hang on, we'll raise the funds to build you in a whole new stadium in St. Louis. Well, that was settled around this week, as the NFL is taking $7.5 million from every team. Every team. Now we'll get into this. From the reach settlement between the Rams and St. Louis. At one point, this is where it gets interesting. At one point, Stan Kroenke said he would pay for all the legal stuff, the settlement, everything. He now says he is not. So, how does this work? If Kroenke ends up paying for it fully, do they get all their money back? Or if they don't, does Stan Kroenke have to pay him out of his own pocket, $7.5 million? There's a weird way to put this. The NFL tried to save face in doing it this way, but to me, Stan Kroenke, if you're gonna move a team and then say, well, we did it because we wanted to, we didn't want to be in St. Louis anymore, you could have just said that. You just left. You're like, no, we're not going to do that. We're gonna go. And you went to LA. To me, what should happen is, if he does not pay the settlement, he should pay every owner back, because they just took $7.5 million out of their own pocket. To me, this is like if you buy a lottery ticket for somebody, and you end up winning, the ticket ends up cashing out, and you decide, I'm not going to give them to him, I'm going to keep all the money myself. Or, I bought you the ticket and I'm not giving you any money because you didn't do anything, you just bought me a ticket. No, like, I still feel like I deserve to be somewhat compensated. I think the NFL teams are going to look that way. And maybe, who knows, we'll figure out what happens in the near future. The NFL has made some rule changes to the practice squad and IR, the injured reserve. Now players have to be on the IR for 4 weeks instead of 3, which doesn't sound like a big deal, but it is, because it was shorter, a much shorter term than short-term IR. Also, only 8 players can return from IR this year, where last year it was unlimited. So it's gonna be interesting to see what teams are gonna do with some injuries. Are they just gonna keep them on the roster? But here's one thing that I really like the NFL did this. The NFL kept the practice squads at 16 players. Now, if you're one of those teams that has an international pathway program player, there are a few teams that have those. The Cowboys are one of them. They don't count as a player, so the Cowboys actually have 17 practice squad players they could have. And those teams that do have international pathway program players, that is the case for them as well. John Gruden as it was announced midway through this week, had won 2 early legal battles versus the NFL, as a judge denies settlement and denies that this should be they would just say, hey, well, the NFL will just pay you a lot of money to keep this shot. But that is not what's going to happen. Now, the NFL is more than likely going to appeal this all the way down the line. But as of right now, it's going to court, and a lot more of those emails are going to be leaked. For the remaining over 700,000 are going to be leaked and see what happens. Because John Gruden's case, and it's very reasonable, when those emails were sent out, he was working for ESPN at the time. He was not working for the Raiders. He told the Raiders about it, and Mark Davis said okay, and hired him anyway. Only when it became public was when it changed. Was when Mark Davis said, no, we gotta let you go. But there's gonna be a lot of news to come out about what else in those emails. What did all these owners say? What did other coaches say? What did other executives say? What did players say? There's going to be a lot of news to come out, and it's not going to look too pretty for the NFL. And finally, Falcons player Avery Williams, who plays corner, is changing his position from cornerback to running back. The Falcons have a lot of running backs this year. Now they add one more. Avery Williams moving from cornerback to running back.